Good evening, everyone. Welcome to this webinar here on Wednesday, November the 25th. My name is Xander Townend. I am one of the counselors and team members of the Love with Boundaries team that is headed up by Candace Plattor, who's going to be our presenter and facilitator of answering questions this evening. We'll encourage you when you have a question that you can enter it in the chat as you have it. And when you do that, I will be keeping a record of all the questions that people have. And then I will call on you or ask if you want me to read it aloud for you. Some people don't mind asking these questions and then having that be their voice on the audio recording. If you'd rather not speak up, but you'd rather submit a question by chat, then please do that. We have had some people who have emailed some questions in beforehand, which is great. We love having those. And it makes it so that we can really put Candace on the spot with the spontaneous questions. Mm-hmm. She smiles at that. So is there anybody here who is unfamiliar enough with Zoom that you would like to have a little bit of an overview of what you can do here inside Zoom? Is there anybody who needs that? So Jeannie, great. Anybody else? Okay, so the thing that you'll see at the bottom of your screen is that there is a chat button that if you drag your mouse down to that chat, it looks like a cartoon bubble. That's where you can press on that, and then it will open up a chat window, usually on the right-hand side of your Zoom screen. And that's where you can enter a question for Candace. And you type it in, yep. And then when we get to the question and answer portion, then I will have whatever questions have been already submitted. And then there'll be a place where we'll open it up for questions from the audience, from the floor, so to speak, so that you can also ask questions in that way at that time. Our time together this evening will go for about 90 minutes, give or take, depending on the questions. And so if we don't have enough questions to fill up that time, we won't stay that long. But if we do, then that's where we'll look to kind of cap it, because we don't want to make this too long for people to engage with. So,
and if you need to leave, then please take care of yourself. And if you have questions, feel free to ask them.
So, without hardly any further ado, thank you, Candace, for mentioning that. If you want to be on camera, then that's great. If you prefer to just stay off camera, that's great as well. When it comes time to in the Q&A portion, I will ask you to unmute yourself. And you do that down usually in the bottom left corner, there's a microphone icon that has mute written under it, or unmute. So at this point, I'd like to say thank you for all for coming here. It's wonderful to have you. I'll just mention that we're doing another webinar next week, and so you're all welcome to come to that. When I send out the recording link for this webinar and Q&A session tomorrow, I will include a link to the registration page for next week's webinar. And then we'll be doing that again next week. There will be a webinar on December the 9th. And that link will come out to you so after next week's webinar as well. So here we go. Candace, you're on.
Okay, welcome everyone. There are some people here who were here last week, and we have a few new people. And I know a few of you, or I know of you, and some of you I don't know, but I'm really glad that you're all here. I have a little bit of a throat thing going on today. You may hear me clearing my throat, just so you know. Yeah, these are exciting. I'm enjoying doing these, and I really love the topic that we're talking about today. It's one of my very favorite topics. So I have a lot to say, a lot to tell you about, and then I'll take questions. And one of the really wonderful things about doing these Zoom presentations, as opposed to doing something in person, like a TED Talk, which I've done, is that I can have my notes right up here on the screen, which I really like. So you may see me looking down every once in a while and then coming back up to you, just to help me check out where I am with you. I want to start by giving you just a little bit of my story. Some of you might know it, some of you might have heard it from last week. I think it's important for me to start with that. I'll be really brief, because you're going to hear me use the term addict. And there are people now in our field who are talking about how that's not a good word to use, and it's not politically correct anymore, and it's a label, and it's a stigma, and all of that. I personally don't see it that way, and I want to explain to you why I don't. When I use the word addict, I'm not meaning to be disrespectful to anyone, and it feels important to say that. Because I am an addict, and I now have 33 and a half almost years clean and sober. But I was basically an opioid addict for about 15 years. And that happened as a result of medications that were prescribed to me for my Crohn's disease, which started in 1973. And back then, Crohn's was a very new disease, and the doctors had no idea what to do with me. They saw every week, sometimes more than that, they saw this young woman who was in pain all the time, crying. Her life had completely exploded, and nothing was the same anymore. And I was very depressed, and they didn't know what to do for me. So what they did was they gave me things like Valium, codeine, oxys, OxyContin, drugs like that. And they kept prescribing them, week after week, month after month, and then 15 years went by. I also smoked a lot of pot during that time because it really helped. I didn't realize that I was addicted to that or to anything else. All I knew was that at the end of about 15 years, I was depressed to the point of being suicidal. I didn't want to live anymore. Well, that's not really true. I did want to live. I just didn't want to live the way I was living. And I didn't know what else to do. And at that time, what I did was I reached out for help. I knew I had enough pills to get the job done. I knew I could do it. It scared me a lot. I reached out, got some really, really good help, and started going to 12-step programs, which at the time pretty much saved my life. That's where I met Xander as well. I just outed you, Xander. He's an addict too, with more clean time than I have. And that's when I learned, somebody asked me if I wanted to go to Narcotics Anonymous with them. So I went and started hearing about addiction and people identifying as addicts. And when I realized that I was an addict, that was very helpful to me because I felt like, okay, there's something I can do about this. I didn't know exactly what, I had to do about this, but I knew there was something going on with me, and I knew that there was something I could do about it. So that was the beginning of my recovery. The rest, as they say, is history. And I'm here now with a better life than I could ever have imagined, and much less sick from Crohn's too. It's not a disease that goes away, but it's much better. So, I just really wanted to kind of give you that background so that you could understand when I use that word, when I use that term, no disrespect if anybody feels that way. So what I'm going to be talking to you about today is the 3 critical keys about self-respect and how to best use them so that you can have a life that you really want to have. You can feel about yourself the way you really want to feel. So let's get started. Yeah. So critical key number 1. In my opinion, self-respect is the most important thing we either have or don't have. For me, there's nothing else that's more important. And for those of you who have been my clients, if you're on my team of counselors, you've heard me talk about this before. I don't care how much money you have. I don't care about any of that stuff. If you don't have self-respect, there's something going on in your life that isn't okay. For me today, self-respect is not negotiable. I don't have people in my personal life, I don't have people who don't honor my self-respect and who don't honor their own self-respect. So this is the way that self-respect works, either positively or negatively. The truth is that we teach other people how to treat us. I didn't come up with that. That was a Dr. Phil-ism. And I'm not the greatest fan of Dr. Phil, but he does say things sometimes that are useful, and that's one of them. We teach other people how to treat us. We do. And so if we're not respecting ourselves, if we're not treating ourselves well, if we're not taking care of ourselves, if we allow ourselves to be doormats in our relationships, we're teaching other people that it's really okay for them to do the same thing with us. If we're not respecting ourselves, why should anybody else respect us? That's kind of the way it is. And I want to let you know that when I was in my addiction, and way before then even, I had no clue what self-respect was. I lived without self-respect for a very long time. I was not always the person you see today. So now that I have self-respect, I'm not giving it up, not for anything. If we don't change the way we feel about ourselves and the way we treat ourselves, we're going to continue to feel badly about ourselves because, and many of you have heard me say this too, if nothing changes, nothing changes. And another way to say that is that if you always do what you've always done, then you'll always get what you've always gotten. So it's your decision about whether you're willing to change anything, whether you're willing to do the inner work it takes, because that's what it takes, whether you're willing to reach out for help if you need it. We can help you at lovewithboundaries.com. On my team, we can help you with all of this. And so if you're willing to do the inner work it takes to change how you feel about yourself, how you see yourself, I applaud you. I'm so happy for you because there's such a difference in the way you're going to live. So the second critical key, number 2, What is the difference between self-esteem and self-respect? And why is it important to understand this difference? Most people talk about self-esteem as if it's self-respect. It's a different thing. The way I see it, it's a different thing. So they talk about, oh, I don't have very high self-esteem, and really what they're saying is that they don't have a lot of self-respect. So let me explain the difference to you, because it's really important that you understand it. And if you have any questions about anything I say about this, please write them down or put them in the chat and we can talk about it later. So this is the way I see it. This is the world according to Candace, that self-esteem comes from the outside in. Self-esteem is when other people compliment us and they say nice things about us. I like your hair, whatever. And the thing about that is that if we aren't really believing that about ourselves, whatever it is they're saying to us, it's not going to land. We're not going to really be able to have it because it's not. Okay, I'm jumping ahead of myself, so I'm going to stop. But if we don't believe it, if somebody says, "Oh, I like your hair," and you think, "You like my hair? My hair is awful. It's always awful." That's not going to land for you. Self-esteem comes from the outside in. Self-respect comes from the inside out. So they're actually kind of polar opposites. Self-respect is about how you feel about yourself when you wake up at 3 o'clock in the morning. If your self-respect is good, if it's positive, if it's strong, then you just might be able to fall back asleep. But if it's not, you're going to be questioning yourself and wondering about yourself and thinking about all your problems and obsessing about relationships and doing that kind of stuff. So the way I like to look at it is that self-respect is the cake, and self-esteem that you get from outside is like the icing and the sprinkles and the cherries. The icing and the sprinkles and the cherries are really nice to have. I'm not saying that we don't want to be complimented, but we need to be sure that we have the cake. And one of the examples that I like to use when I talk to people about this is that, if you say to me, "Oh, Candace, you're such a good counselor, you're really great," that kind of thing, if I don't believe that, there's not any way that I'm going to have any of it. And I don't know if you've heard about black holes. Most people have. I'm not a scientist, and I can't really explain to you what a black hole is or how it works or why it does what it does. But what I do know about a black hole is that if you put something into a black hole, it disappears. That's what the scientists say. So if you tell me something good about me and I don't believe it, I don't have the self-respect to believe it, it kind of goes in a black hole and disappears. So our job, as strange as this might sound, we have to each learn how to cork up our own black hole so that things don't just go away, so that we can hear nice things from the outside and believe them on the inside. And again, this is something that you might need some help with, so please reach out for help if you need it. We can help you. Good help is really hard to find, and it's really important. Now, there's another piece of this. I think most of you are going to understand this, especially the women, but men have some men have the same situation. We're raised differently. That's the only reason I say that. Loved ones, most loved ones of people with addiction absolutely hate conflict. I'd like you to raise your hand if you're one of them. Let me see. Do you hate conflict? Uh-huh. And I don't particularly like it that much myself, but I've gotten a lot better at it over the years. Most of us will do almost anything to avoid conflict. What we're really trying to avoid is other people's anger with us, disappointment with us, frustration. So in order to avoid having people be angry or frustrated or disappointed or whatever with us, just so that we don't have to deal with that because we don't know how, these are the kinds of things we do. The first one is that we say yes when we mean no. I could ask you to raise your hands for that one too, and I know your hands would go up. So we say yes when we don't really mean yes. We just say it so that you won't get angry with us. And because we're saying yes when we don't mean it, a lot of the time, resentment starts to build. And that's not a good thing to happen inside of us. You know, that kind of resentment and self-respect cannot coexist. So we need to do something about that. Another thing we do is we go along to get along. Do you know that saying? We go along with things just to be able to get along with people. We go along to get along. We also don't quite know where we end and somebody else starts. We have kind of weak boundaries that way. And boundaries is something that we're going to be talking about next week. We might talk a little bit about it today, but mostly we're going to talk about that next week. But it's kind of like if you have an addict in your life, a practicing addict in your life, it's like you're sitting on a roller coaster in the same car. You're sitting right next to the addict that you love deeply, and you're going up and down with them. And when they're doing well, then you're doing well. And if they're not doing so well, you're not doing so well. And that goes on and on and on and on. And it's kind of like you're addicted to the addict's addiction. You're addicted to what happens to the addict. It's a horrible way to live. You don't really have a solid sense of who you are. And for most people, I know this personally for myself and the inner work that I've done over the years. I've done a lot of it. And I also know it from 30 years of working with clients who love addicts. You know, for most people, this kind of being addicted to somebody else, not knowing who you are, people pleasing, going along to get along, starts in childhood. For some reason, sometimes we're conditioned that way. Sometimes it's about what happened to us and we decide that it's just easier to do it that way. It usually starts in childhood and it continues throughout our whole lives until we finally heal it. And so it's a really good thing to heal. You might as well heal it. And it's never too late to heal it. That's another really good thing. When we teach other people how to treat us, especially in a negative way, we most of the time choose unconsciously, we choose friends and relationship partners who will take advantage of us because we let them, because it feels comfortable, because it's what we know. It's been our comfort zone. And a comfort zone isn't healthy, it's just comfortable, right? So we almost look for people who are going to continue what we know and what's comfortable for us. It's like you go to a party and you see somebody across that crowded room and you think to yourself, aha, that's the person, you know? And then you get together, and instead of meshing like this, you kind of mesh like that. So the people we choose have, and we don't necessarily mean to choose these people. It's not like we're saying to ourselves, I'm going to choose somebody who treats me really badly. It's just something that happens because it's what we're comfortable with. So some of the qualities of people like that, they can be narcissistic. You know, me, 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 me. I'm interested in what I'm interested in, and that's generally me. Self-absorbed, you know. I don't really care what you need or what you want. I'm much more interested in what I need and what I want. Many of them are addicts of some kind. You'll find that out later. If they're narcissistic, then they're also usually pretty charming, and they won't maybe tell you that they have some addictive behaviors. You'll have to find that out as you go along, and then, oh my God, how did I ever get here? How did I choose this? Many of them have really low emotional intelligence. They don't know how to get in touch with their feelings. They don't know how to feel their feelings or express them. And that can be difficult. There's a lot of really good information on the internet, and there's some really good books as well about emotional intelligence. So if you haven't had a chance to explore that, you might want to, because you probably have more of it than the addict in your life. Yeah, probably, most probably. Because addicts use addictions to not have to feel what they feel. And when you're addicted to an addict, that's what you're doing too. To not have to really feel, to not have to really challenge what it is that's going on for you. The credo of somebody who has these characteristics that are going to seem really attractive to you in the beginning, the credo is, I want what I want when I want it right now. I actually wanted it yesterday. Don't get in my way, because I want what I want. I'm going to have what I want. And if you get in my way, I'm going to, you know, steamroll all over you so that I can have my way. That's the kind of relationship you're probably in or have been in with the addict in your life. And if you have children, sometimes the adult children in your life are going to be addicts, sometimes they won't be. But if you have children, they love us. They love us because we're so nice. We're just so nice as parents. We'll give them anything. But they know that we're pushovers. They love us, but they know that they can walk all over us. And the thing about that is that it's not good role modeling for them, especially if your children are still young. It's not good role modeling for them, male or female. You're teaching them, if you're going to give them everything, you're going to develop a sense of entitlement in your children. They're going to start to believe that they deserve to have everything, and that's not really the world we live in. So there's a lot of chaos that can happen with that. They may choose friends who will go along with them to get along. They may choose friends, they'll try to choose people in their lives who will give them what they want because they're entitled. And if somebody doesn't do that, then they get rid of that friend and they move on to somebody who will idolize them and adore them and give them what they want. It's, you know, it's not too late to change what you're doing with your children, no matter how old your children are. It's not too late to change the relationship that you have with them. And it's the best thing you can do for them. It's the best thing you can do for yourself and for your self-respect. Here's critical key number 3. And here's the really good news. This is the best news ever. Once I figured this out, life got so much better. Once we know how once we learn how to handle somebody else's anger, somebody else's frustration or disappointment or any other kind of negative feeling that they're having, especially toward us, once we learn how to handle that, we become emotionally free. We're free. We don't have to keep twisting ourselves into those pretzels. We don't have to keep thinking, okay, well, what is it that they want from me and how do I have to be? And we can become our authentic selves once we know how to do that. It's really worth it to do that. I'll just tell you a little story about me, and I think Xander can remember this too, that when I first met him, in my life, I was called Candy. From birth, I was called Candy until I changed into Candace, which is a much better fit for somebody who respects themselves, I think. But even before I knew about any of this stuff, I used to call myself Candy the Chameleon. You just tell me what you want me to be, who you want me to be, how you want me to be, and I'll be it. I'm really good at it. I'll just change myself around and that's who I'll be. It was exhausting. I did not like living that way. I didn't know there was another choice. And today I know there's another choice. So, most of the people who meet me like me. I'm pretty likable. Some days, most days, I guess. But if you don't, that's really okay with me. Because not everybody's going to like me. Not everybody's going to like you. Not everybody's going to like you. It's okay. You don't like everybody. It's okay. So we can free ourselves from that burden of having to please everybody. And it's a lovely, lovely way to live. So I hope that all of you will do what needs to be done, because the next thing I want to talk to you about is how do you do this? How do you do this? So what it really takes is looking inside, getting some help to look inside. Why are you doing this in the first place? How did this happen for you? The first thing I think we need to do is we need to stop depending on other people to fill us up, because it doesn't work anyway. Because if other people are filling us up, trying to give us our self-esteem, when we don't have our self-respect, it goes into the black hole and it disappears. So we need to stop depending on other people to fill us up and instead learn how to fill ourselves up, to learn how to cork up that black hole, to get stronger, to get wiser, to learn how to like ourselves, even on days when we feel like we don't like ourselves, to still like ourselves. We need to learn how to be honest with ourselves. The 12-step programs have a saying. They talk about taking the softer, easier way out. And we have to stop doing that with ourselves. We have to hold ourselves accountable. We need to come out of the comfort zones that really aren't working for us. We need to hold ourselves accountable when we're doing things like this. The first one is when we're in denial. That saying of denial is more than a river in Egypt, Denial. I don't want to think about it. I'm not going to think about it. If you know the story of Gone with the Wind, Scarlett O'Hara, I'll think about it tomorrow. I'm not going to think about it. Well, that doesn't really work in real life. So we need to come out of denial and see life the way it is, to face it the way it is. We need to stop deflecting. Deflecting is an interesting thing. It's kind of got two parts to it. I think I'm dating myself here when I talk about Wonder Woman, because I don't know whether I think there's been a new Wonder Woman movie recently where Wonder Woman wears these bracelets, and what she does when somebody throws anything at her, she goes, no, 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 she deflects it. She deflects it. She won't have it. And I really like that. I think there's a place for that. But I also think that deflecting has an element of blame to it, and it's about blaming the other person. Deflecting is, oh, well, my life would be perfect if it wasn't for so-and-so. That's deflecting. And it sometimes is what the addict does to us. The addict gaslights us, and gaslighting means that they blame us. Look what you made me do. I'd be fine if it wasn't for you, right? So all of that stuff is deflecting, and none of it is real. Because even when an addict tells you, you're making me do this, you make me feel terrible, just love that, you make me feel. Nobody makes anybody feel anything. Nobody has that kind of control over anybody else. But look what you're making me do, and look what you're making me feel, and it's your fault that I have an addiction. Well, no, that's hogwash, for want of a better word. It's the addict's choice to be an addiction. And they probably didn't mean to get themselves into addiction, but they're there now, and they have a choice about whether to stay there or whether to come out and get into some kind of recovery. Just the same as it's your choice to stay addicted to your addict and not have any self-respect, or to come out of that and recover and find somebody better. Except that you can't find anybody better until you find yourself, because everything starts from the self. So that's what we need to do. We need to stop minimizing the situation. I had a grandmother who people would say about her, they would say, oh, she means well. Because my grandmother would say terrible things, horrible things. Sometimes she'd say them to me, terrible things. And if I complained about it, my mother or father would say, oh, she means well. What I know today is that if somebody means well, they can do better. Let's not minimize the situation that you're in. It's horrible. You don't like it. You don't feel good about yourself. You've got somebody in your life who is causing absolute chaos and misery for you. You can change it, and really, you're the only one who can. Because if you're waiting for the addict to do it, you're probably going to be waiting for a long time. As you change yourself, the ripple effect is going to be that the addict changes. But if you wait for the outside to change before changing the inside, you're in trouble. So let's not do it that way. Rationalizing is another thing that we do. We have to hold ourselves accountable and not rationalize. When we rationalize, we're usually arguing for somebody's limitations, sometimes your own. For example, if your adult child or maybe even your partner is not able to get up in the morning because they've been drinking the night before and they can't get to work, and you have to go and wake them up, and they get mad at you if you don't go wake them up, and it's your fault because they couldn't get up and go to work, and so you keep waking them up and they don't get up, and it's a mess. Yeah? So the thing to do in a situation like that is not say to yourself, well, they can't get up because they're drinking so much. Like, stop doing that. And instead, teach them how to set an alarm. Teach them how to set it on their iPhone. They set it. When it goes off, it's up to them to get up. Because if they don't get up and there's some kind of a consequence for them not to get up, they get yelled at work, they lose their job, whatever, they're going to learn how to get out of bed in the morning and maybe not drink so much the night before. So we need to stop arguing for people's limitations and let them have their own lives and their own consequences. We need to really hold ourselves accountable with this kind of thing. We have to stop lying to ourselves, basically. And the most important thing that we have to do, we have to ask ourselves the self-respect question. And the self-respect question is, what do I need to do, or what do I need to not do to be able to look in the mirror and be okay with who I see? And when I say look in the mirror, I'm not talking about physically, I'm not talking about what you weigh, I'm not talking about any of that. I'm talking about the inside. What do I need to do or not do to be able to be okay with myself? You can ask yourself, how do I want to show up in the world? Who do I want to be? Do I want to be the person I am now? How do I want to feel about myself? Am I willing, this is really important, am I willing to do the inner work that it takes to get myself to that place? Because that's what it takes, is doing that inner work. And if you're not willing to do it, then you're always going to do what you've always done, and you'll always get what you've always gotten. So it's really up to you, because nobody can make that decision for you but you. And I know that some of you are doing this inner work because you're working with us, and I'm really happy for you, the ones who are. It's fabulous. Because it's like, what do I need to do for me to make these changes? What do I need to do, and what am I willing to do to make these changes? Because if nothing changes, nothing changes. So we need to make something change. And in conclusion, I'm thinking that many of you know the Serenity Prayer. The Serenity Prayer is, God, or whatever that means to you, grant me the serenity, the peace, the calmness. And for most of you who love an addict, you don't have that, very much of that in your lives, but grant me the serenity to accept the things I cannot change, which is going to basically be anything outside of you, the weather, how fast time goes, all kinds of things, the addict. The courage to change the things I can, which is us. This is what we can change. We can change us, our choices, our reactions. That's about it. If you think you can change more than that, you might want to really think about that. So the courage to change the things I can, and the wisdom, to me, this is the most important part, the wisdom to know the difference. If we don't know the difference between what we can change and what we can't change, we're always going to be trying to change what we can't change and using our energy to change what we can't change instead of changing what we can. So I want to read you two very short quotes that come from my book, my first book. It's called Loving an Addict, Loving Yourself. Some of you have read it. Having the wisdom to know the difference between what you can and cannot change, and knowing how to change the things you can control, yourself, will create both the serenity and the self-respect that you've been trying to find in your life. And the second one, developing self-respect is an amazing journey. As you do your inner work and begin to make different choices, you'll be astonished by the wonderful rewards that await you. Your entire life changes as your self-respect surges, choice by choice. So your only question needs to be, how soon can I start? And that's the end of my presentation. I hope you find that helpful.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Candace. We've had people who have had to leave and people who haven't had to leave offer up gratitude to you for doing this. So they're saying thank you very much. They've got a lot of value out of it already. I'd like to, at this point, cover a couple of things before we go into the full Q&A. And so the first is, I'm going to share with you my screen. This is what the webinar next week is going to be. And it's setting and maintaining healthy boundaries when you love an addict. It's at the same time next week. And there you see the cover of Candace's book, Loving an Addict, Loving Yourself. That's her first book. And then she also has a workbook that goes along and helps you work through this. It is available as a PDF, so you can get it electronically. You can also order a copy. There's a variety of ways to do that on our website. Then, Candace, it's time for the big reveal. You've got a new book that's available on Amazon today. It's
Yes.
Self-Respect
Yes.
Day, a
Yes.
journal.
Yes. So I have a copy of it here. I was muted, but I was saying drum roll. Who plays the drums? Yes. So you guys want to see it? Want to see the front cover?
Yes, they do.
Okay. Oh, there we go. So it's called Self-Respect Sunday. Some of you are getting my Self-Respect Sunday pieces every Sunday. So it's Self-Respect Sunday for your soul, if you love an addict, and it's a weekly journal. So on the inside are these really beautiful images, and then there are quotes from, from Loving an Addict, Loving Yourself. So there's one that I'd really like to share with you, if I can find it. Give me a second here. It's worth the wait. Okay, so this one says, the self-care creed is, although I care about other people's feelings, the way I care about myself is most important to me. And then this is the image. Can you guys see it? Can you see that bird just taking off and leaving the other one behind? If you're not going to come with me, if you're not going to have self-respect, I'm out of here. So that's what this book is. And then there are journal pages for you to write on. And I'm very proud of it, very happy about it. And it's on Amazon right now, amazon.com, amazon.ca. So if you like, you can go and write a review, and that would be really awesome if you want to do that. I don't think you have to buy it first. I think you can write a review without buying it, but if you want to buy it, that's great too. Might be nice as a gift for yourself or somebody else that you know that loves an addict. So, yeah.
Thank you, Candace. So,
Yeah.
very quickly, we're going to go into the question section. I just want to mention, to reinforce what Candace was saying, is that we do work with families. We are probably we are the only organization, the only treatment, the only option out there that specifically focuses on working with the families of addicts. Yes, we also work with addicts, but we believe that it's important to work with the families first, because that's the environment that the addict is most strongly going to relate to and refer to. So we think that if we can help you and your circle of love to be able to better love the addict with self-respect, with healthy boundaries, with boundaries with love, then you're going to help yourself come out of the pain of addiction forever, and you're going to also help the addict in the best possible way. So, Candace, we have...
And I just want to say also, Xander, I'll just add that we have a questionnaire, and it's on our website. If anybody's interested in having a free 30-minute consultation about what's going on with you and what kinds of things you can do to change this for yourself and how we can help you do that. It's a free 30-minute consultation. All you have to do is fill out a questionnaire. It's not too long. It's not too, detailed. Some of these questionnaires are like, they take hours. Ours is not like that. As soon as we get it, we'll get back to you and schedule the call as soon as possible because we know that this stuff doesn't wait.
And what I would like to suggest, ladies and gentlemen, is that you all know families and family members who are secretly suffering with the pain of addiction. And they don't know about us as a resource.
Yeah.
Please feel free to, and we encourage you, that you will be helping them if you share this information with them.
Yeah.
Whether you do it in a private message through Facebook Messenger or an email or in a phone call, you probably won't know that they're dealing with this. But if you say that you just attended this great webinar and Q&A session,
and maybe they can even send the link to this to whoever they're thinking about.
So you will be actually doing a service to them, and you don't know necessarily in advance how many lives you'll be touching by sharing this information with other people.
Yeah, we want to help as many families as we can because there are so many families like yours that are needing help. Yeah.
Okay, so I will post the link to the questionnaire in the email when I share the audio recording of this session. So it'll be easy for you to find. And so I have some questions.
Good.
Submitted. And so the first one is, how does a woman remain self-respecting and overcome society's bias against strong, self-respecting women?
Yeah, that's a good one. My first answer is to not care what they think of you, because even though you kind of care what they think of you, what you think about yourself is more important. Just what I was talking about from the book. It's really hard for women. It's a little easier for men who are conditioned to be more aggressive and assertive. It's hard for women to to really become strong within herself and to break that glass ceiling, and to become the person that she can be. But it only happens if you start caring about yourself more than you care about the other person who may be, oh my God, calling you a bitch or something. Like, so what? I know that there are consequences, of course. You're at a work situation where the boss doesn't want you to be a strong woman. Okay, so you may need to put up with that for a little while, maybe with an eye on finding another job at some point that's better for you. Again, last week I was talking about payoffs and price tags, and the payoff for staying in a job, for example, or a relationship where somebody doesn't want you to be strong, the payoff may be that you can stay in denial, that you don't really have to work on yourself, that things don't really have to change too much for you. Maybe it's a little scary, but the price tag for that is huge. So I think you need to look at what are the payoffs and what are you paying for it? What are you paying for not being a strong woman? Because I'm telling you, there's nothing like being a strong woman. And I've been both. I've been not strong. I've been strong. Strong is better.
Right on. Thank you, Candace. This person also asked about their granddaughters who she shared the movie Brave with. All that impressed because it's not your typical type of female heroine. And so they asked if you had any other pro-female animated movies for little girls to recommend, or do you know any pro-female movies for adults?
Yeah.
And so this
So
in advance. So Candace actually pulled up a list of her movies, and I'm going to share that with everyone.
well, it's not a list of my movies. I heard this question before the fact, before this webinar. Xander shared that question with me. I thought it was brilliant. And so what I did was I went online and I have a list of, because one of the parts of the question was animated films for children. I'm not somebody who watches a lot of animated films, so I really didn't know what to say, but there's a great big list of animated movies that are pro-woman, pro-little girl, and so there's a link to that in the chat. Xander's just put it in, and there's a link. I also looked up pro-women, pro-female movies, and I've seen most of those, and they're great, and so we have a list of that for you as well.
So those are the links to those are in the chat. And so you could click on that, or if you want to put a message in the chat that you want me to, I'll just don't even bother. I will put those links in the email tomorrow.
Great.
That's easier for everybody.
Yeah.
I get eventually to the easy thing. It sometimes takes me a little bit.
See, that's a good time. That's a good way to take the easier, softer way out. So that's the positive of it. So yeah, you may have some really good movies to watch over Christmas that are like really empowering. And if you find any others, let me know. We'll just keep a list of them.
Right on. So then I have a question about boundaries tomorrow on Thanksgiving. This is from in the US. My son will be coming over and I want to ask him or tell him I don't want him drinking in front of me and not before he comes or while he is here. Is that a boundary?
Oh, yes.
And what would make it a good boundary?
Okay. So the thing that would make it a really good boundary would be feeling your self-respect as you say this to him. If he's coming to your house, it's your house. It's not his house, it's your house. And you get to make the rules in your house. Strong people can make the rules in their own homes. So I like that, when I was listening to the question, it was the way it was worded, I don't want him drinking in front of me. I thought, well, he can go into that room then and drink. But then you said, I don't want him drinking here at all. And that's great. That's a great boundary. And you can also tell him that if he does drink, you will be asking him to leave. And you don't have to say this to him, but if he doesn't leave, you can call the police to get him out, or somebody else who might be there can get him out. Last week, we were talking about the holidays and addicts and, how to have a good holiday. And I think, Xander, if anybody wants that link, can they let you know and you can just send it to them and they can hear that one as well?
What I'll do is I'll put that in the email tomorrow as well.
Okay, it's going to be a big email. Okay. So one of the things I talked about a lot last week was COVID, because COVID is real. And I was raised in the States. I'm a dual citizen. I remember Thanksgiving in November, at the end of November, and what a big deal, in Canada, Thanksgiving is on a Monday in October. That was hard to get used to. But in the States, it's tomorrow. And it's a big, big holiday. And if you're going to have your addicted son come to your home, You just might want to think about that, because they're talking about bubbles, and they're talking about, people can bring COVID to your house. So it may be the year to just even skip that entirely. That takes the problem away. And you can explain it to them that way. In Canada, in BC, here where I am, we've got a mandate now from our government that we are not to have any more than 6 people at a gathering, and they're supposed to be your own family that you live with. You're not supposed to enter anybody else's home. In fact, you're not really allowed to. If they catch you, they can fine you, kind of thing, because we're really trying to, because the numbers are exploding, the COVID numbers. So you might want to just think about that. But if you are going to have them in your home, it absolutely is a boundary. It's a self-respecting boundary. It's a choice for him about whether he drinks or he doesn't drink. He can make that choice. And if he doesn't make that choice, he doesn't get to be in your home at your celebration. Done deal. Full stop.
Great. Thank you, Candace. That's wonderfully clear, which is what a good, solid boundary is, with great consequences. And if you do this, I will do this.
This is what will happen. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Then we have a question. How do I have the self-respect to leave this person who is my boyfriend of 4 years, who has, for the past 20 years, almost yearly gone into detox, keeps falling back into his addictions? How do I have the self-respect to leave this person who lies, steals from me, manipulates situations, when I have abandonment issues from adoption?
Okay. Okay, well, I'm going to break that question down because there's a few really important pieces in it.
Yep.
So the first piece is, you've got somebody who's lying to you, stealing from you, doing all kinds of things to you that you've been allowing him to do because we teach people how to treat us. So for you to start to develop that self-respect, once we have some of that self-respect, it's really hard. The way I like to put it is, once our eyes are open, it's really hard to close them again. It's doable, but it takes denial, and it takes deflection, and it takes minimizing, and it takes, the things I was talking about before. But once your eyes are open, and your eyes seem to be open about this, like this, I'm assuming it's a man, but either way, this person is not treating you well. The reason he's not treating you well is that you've been allowing him to not treat you well. There's no other way that happens. So as you start doing this inner work, if you're not working with us, hopefully you can, because we can help you with this. But, as you start doing that strengthening, that strengthening of yourself, you're not going to want this. People who want to treat you badly are going to be like, for me, they're pretty boring. Somebody wants to pick a fight with me for no reason. Somebody wants to blame me for something that's not my fault. Boring. And that's what's going to start happening for you. So I'm really glad you're asking the question. Yay. The other part of it, 2 parts of it, abandonment and the abandonment from adoption. I was not adopted. I can't know exactly how you feel. I can tell you that in my family, I sometimes wished that some other family would adopt me, because it was a very difficult family to live with. I never really felt like anybody had my back. It was very difficult. I felt abandoned and rejected a lot of the time. I did know my blood. I look just like my father looked, so I knew I came from that family. But that's about as far as it went for me. I grew up with a narcissistic mother and a very self-absorbed father who had addictions of his own. One sibling who didn't handle it any better than I did. It was very hard. I can't know exactly how you feel, but what I know is that it was similar, okay? And what I discovered as I was doing my inner work, and sometimes this still pops up, but not nearly as often, is that I basically abandoned myself. I believed, just like every child who's in a difficult situation, the only way that children know how to explain to themselves what's going on and why they're being treated badly is what they say to themselves is, I'll backtrack a little bit. It's too hard for a child to think, my mother and father are really screwed up, and this is why all of this is happening. Children don't think that way. Children need their parents to be strong and healthy, and they need them to care for them, right? So they don't think that. So what they think instead is, this must be about me. If I was different, if I was just prettier or smarter or this or that, or this wouldn't be happening to me. So it must be my fault. And when we grow up feeling like it's our fault, like everything that happens is our fault, all that shame, all that guilt that we carry around, we don't like ourselves very much, and we abandon ourselves and we let people come into our lives who hurt us. So one of the first things that we need to do is to stop abandoning ourselves. We need to get to know those little children inside of us who are still wounded, who are still hurting, because those parts of ourselves, they hold our pain, but they also hold our joy and our playfulness. And so until we can heal the wounded part, we don't have a lot of joy or playfulness, I would imagine that most children who are adopted, who are adopted, would feel abandoned by their birth families. I can't imagine a child not feeling that way. But to believe that that had anything to do with you, that you were a bad baby, you were a bad kid, so they left you, that's not what happened. They couldn't take care of you. It wasn't about you, it was about them. And the sooner we can understand that and really accept that, we can stop abandoning ourselves and we can stop letting other people hurt us. We don't deserve that. We never deserved that. So it's a wonderful question. I hope I've answered the different parts of it. Yeah.
That's very good. Thank you, Candace. At this point, that's the end of the questions that have been sent in. So I'm going to invite people to raise your hand or to unmute yourself. Is there anybody who'd like to ask Candace a question about anything we've talked about, or along ideas that have come from that? And if not, then we're at the end of our webinar and Q&A.
Yeah, but let's see if there is anybody, because I welcome your questions if there is anybody who has a question.
Yeah, I wasn't trying to rush. I was just giving people.
Okay.
So please, if you have a question, unmute yourself and start to talk.
Ask away. Okay, going once. Going twice. Okay. Oh.
Hi there.
Hi, Leslie. Hi, Leslie. Hi.
I was wondering about, you mentioned in today's webinar 3 important things about self-respect. So I got point number 1 written down, and I have point number 3 written down, but I'm not sure what point number 2 was.
Okay, I'll tell it to you, but
Okay.
you'll also be getting the audio of this session, of this
Okay.
webinar, so you can go back and listen to it. But let me go back into my notes here. That's what I love about this so much. So I'll repeat them all, Leslie, for anybody who didn't get them, who
Okay.
would like to write them down. So the first key is that self-respect is the, capitalized, the most important thing we either have or don't have.
Yes.
Okay?
Yeah.
And critical key number 2, what is the difference between self-esteem and self-respect? And why is it important to understand this difference?
Okay. Self-esteem.
I'll
Yes.
give you a second just to write it down.
Yeah.
And number 3 is the really good news that once we learn how to handle other people's anger and frustration and all of that stuff, then we can be emotionally free. We don't have to play any games anymore. We don't have to worry about that anymore.
Right.
And that it's never too late to do it. So those
Okay.
are the 3 keys.
And what is never too late to do it?
Never too late to do any of this, but it's never too late to learn how to handle somebody's anger toward us, somebody's
Okay.
difficulty with us. It's never too late to learn how to handle that, but it's never too late to develop our self-respect and to do the work it takes for that.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, that sounds good.
Yeah.
But I'm
Good.
going
Glad you're here.
to jump
Thank
in
you.
with a suggestion. It's also never too early to start with any of this. So you matter. Give yourself the gift of self-respect.
Yeah. You know, this is my favorite mug. Did I show this mug last time? My
Nope.
favorite mug. I've gotten one for every member of the team, although not everybody's gotten it yet. Yep. It says, live a life you love. And the thing is that we cannot live a life we love if we don't have self-respect. We cannot live a life we love if we don't like ourselves. If we're not living our lives that way. So I invite you to get yourself a mug. Yeah.
Okay, well, thank you everybody for showing up. Thank you
Yeah.
for your attention. And is there anybody else who'd like to ask a question before we close this down for tonight? I don't see any.
Nope.
I
Looks like we're done for now.
webinar.
Yeah.
Looking forward
Yeah.
to the next one. Thank you so much. Self-respect.
And remember that if you fill out a questionnaire, you can have a free 30-minute telephone consultation with us. So pretty good deal.
Congratulations on your new book.
Oh, thank you.
So,
Thank you. Thank you, Pat.
and where do we get the questionnaire? I'm going to put it in the email.
Oh, he's going to put it in this great big long email. You're going to have so many links.
Not that big. I'm going to put it in the, you can also have a link to it from the second item on the left-hand side of our homepage, lovewithboundaries.com.
Right.
If you'd like to, yeah. So if you'd like to go to our homepage, that's where you can see the schedule of free call with us. So thank you everybody for showing up.
It's really great to see everyone. And thank you for being here. And I hope you'll come back next week, talk about boundaries. What fun. It actually is fun to talk about boundaries. Okay, bye for now.